follow through all the recommendations of the observer mission. Therefore, the MDC reinstates its call for national dialogue. National dialogue which must be inclusive, unconditional, and genuine. And this dialogue must include political actors, civil society actors, churches, and other stakeholders. Among other things, this dialogue must be aimed at reforms that ensure that there is, among other things, an even playing field. This dialogue must also be aimed at improving the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. There is no question that looking at what has gone on, the economic and political and social life of the Zimbabwean person will not be transformed for the better. So as the MDC, we reinstate our call for dialogue. And this dialogue has to be heeded by everyone. We called for the dialogue, for national dialogue, which was spent by ZANU-PF and the government. And this dialogue was derided and condescended upon by fellow opposition members. We have to unite as the opposition when it comes to these issues. Yet everybody heeded to our call for dialogue. We may have averted issues, the issues around the delimitation, around the exorbitant fees, around the selective application of the law, and around our ability to protect the vote. We may have averted through dialogue at the issue of the unilateral veto of the polling agents training and deployment assistance that we were given by the European Union. I am aware, of course, that there are political parties who braved it out and went into this election. And right now, I can say with certainty that they had problems of raising polling agents. There are certain polling stations where they were unable to fill polling agents. So dialogue is extremely, extremely important. And again, in calling for the unity of purpose of all progressive forces, we call upon the opposition to act in common purpose. We remember that when we waged the fight, the genuine fight against delimitation, some people sent lawyers toward that legal battle. And now this issue of delimitation has come back to haunt us. As the MDC, we stand for the unity of all progressive forces, for bringing true democracy to Zimbabwe. As the MDC, we are pro-people, we are pro-poor. We want the Zimbabwean people to live a better life. For that reason, we want the sanctions against Zimbabwe to be removed. But those people who impose the sanctions have had their conditionalities. And one of these conditionalities is for us to have truly free and fair elections. And that's why the MDC have been at the forefront of fighting for free and fair elections, because the MDC is against the sanctions. And we need to reinstate dialogue as a way of convincing the world that we are for reform and that we deserve international integration, and so the integration of Zimbabwe into the international community of nations. We remain a responsible party, a patriotic party. Zimbabwe is for all of us. And in this regard, I want to pay homage to the people of Zimbabwe for the relative peace that we saw. I'm using the term relative because in some instances, there was peace. In some instances, there were skirmishes that did take place. In some instances, of course, I am aware, and we are aware, that there was harvest of field. But relatively speaking, on a positive note, there was relative peace in our country. We want to maintain that peace. And we want, as the MDC, to make a clear message to this government. We shall not accept to be treated as second citizens in our country. We have the right to participate in the election. We have the right to be voted for or not voted for, to contest elections. We have that right. But that right was taken away from us by this government in this election. And we are not asking for that right. We are demanding that right. We are not waiting to be freely given this right. We are going to take this right. And to the Zimbabwe Election Commission, they have let the people of Zimbabwe down, and they have to go back to the drawing board. On the part of the MDC, we remain a true vanguard of the people. We have been vindicated by the recent history. What we warned would happen in Zimbabwe has come to pass. That the delimitation was going to be a source of problem, it has come to pass. That the mass disenfranchisement of people will not end with one political party, it has come to pass. That we need electoral reforms, and that without electoral reforms, there cannot be free and fair election. It has come to pass. It has come to pass, of course, that the panacea to the political conundrum of Zimbabwe is dialogue. It has come to pass. So maybe at that point in time, the MDC was a party which was ahead of its time. Other actors have caught up. We are happy about that. And we are not going to be saying, we told you so. We are going to say, let's work together for the betterment of Zimbabwe. We remain a patriotic party. We love our country. And we love our country not less than anyone else. And we want to defend our birthright as the MDC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any questions? Just 1, 2, 3, 4. For now, number 1.
Okay, my question is on the call for dialogue. Can you clarify on that? When you say dialogue, are you talking about the GNU or what?
Number 2.
Love Jim Tungiza from 26 Chat. Another opposition party has said these elections were flawed. These elections or these results are also flawed. What's your take on that? Do you endorse these results? Do you endorse the outcome? Do you endorse that the elections were flawed?
Number 3. Number 4.
Well, my question was, Zimdei, I wanted to check if we had not gone for this election, what would have that meant constitutionally? And now that we are here, what does it also mean to the people of Zimbabwe, given that our election cannot be categorized as credible, free or fair?
Yeah. Will we take more? If there are any more takers? I think we are done. Over to you.
Thank you very much. The first question is to clarify on dialogue. Well, the MDC looks at dialogue as a process aimed at something that is good for the people of Zimbabwe. The dialogue we are asking for should lead to social, political, and economic reforms that will benefit the generality of Zimbabweans. In other words, the dialogue must generate a better life for the people of Zimbabwe. That is the end product of the dialogue. Now, the issues that you asked about on whether by dialogue we mean the GNU. GNU is a possible outcome of dialogue. We cannot preempt what the dialogue may bring because we have said that the dialogue should be unconditional, genuine, and it must be inclusive. So what it will yield, we don't know. But that process must be done. And the aim must be to better the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. Now, if we were to end on a GNU only, that is a danger of a selfish or self-centered dialogue, where politicians are negotiating for a place on the feeding trough. That is not what we are doing. What we want is dialogue that will result in more better, in more and better enfranchisement of the people of Zimbabwe. In an election system where we don't have an election management body victimizing a political party and denying a political party a chance to participate, it must lead to something better. And of course, when we are calling for dialogue, we are not calling for an elite pact. In other words, a discussion between Mr. Mwonzora and Mr. Mnangagwa and Mr. Chamisa. That is not dialogue. The dialogue we are calling for is the dialogue that must be organic, that must include political actors, non-political actors like churches, other actors like civil society. The generality of the Zimbabwean people must be represented in that dialogue. And its end product must be a Zimbabwe which is better for everyone. That's what we aim for. The results of the elections, were these results real or not real? Were the elections flawed or not flawed? Let me start with whether the results were real or not real. We don't know that. We had nothing to do with that. And we made it clear that we are not in this election. So we were not interested in the results of this election. Those who were in this election can advise us better. And I think that one of my colleagues who were in this election had a similar press conference yesterday, and I'm sure you had a chance to raise that question. It would be better be answered by the protagonists in this dogfight. We had no dog in the fight. We said on a matter of principle, we disagree because this election is fundamentally flawed on the basis of delimitation, on the basis of discrimination, on the basis of disenfranchisement of other people, on the basis of vetoing the ability of us as a party to safeguard our vote. And we then said we are out of it. Of course, the Zimbabwe Election Commission wanted to keep my name on the ballot paper, my face on the ballot paper. It was in order to allocate me a figure. I am not interested in that figure. I told them I was not interested in their election. And I have very little interest in the results of this election because they are not very meaningful to us. Whether the elections that then happened were flawed, what we do know as the MDC is that the conditions for free and fair elections have not existed for us. They have not existed for us because 87 of our candidates were disenfranchised. Stated in another way, people in 87 constituencies were denied the right to exercise free choice. And we know that 2.6 million Zimbabweans stayed away from this election. And that cannot be a normal state of affairs. But this question is better answered by people who actually participated in this election. If we had not gone into this election, Yvonne, that is a very, very good question. But what is the difference between going into this election and not going into this election now? The people who went into this election held a press conference like this one, just like the people who did not go into the elections. It brought us back to square one. So if going to elections was going to bring you back to square one, and if not going to elections was going to bring you to back to square one, why go to the elections when you know the destination? That destination of this election is square one. And that's why we used the phrase that going to this election is an act of foolish bravery, because it's a waste of time. But I think that going into this election under the conditions that were there acted as a way of sanitizing the election. And I am not very sure whether one would go into an election under this delimitation report and then complain afterwards about the delimitation report. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. If the delimitation report was flawed, then it could be a basis for a free and fair election. If other people were being disenfranchised, it may not be people from your party, it may not be people from whom you like, but the moment there is disenfranchisement of a Zimbabwean, all democracy-loving people must unite in favor of that person. They must stand in solidarity of that person, whether they politically agree with him or not.
Thank you.
Just one.
question.
Just a follow up.
1,
Yep.
2, 3. This is the last round, right? 4.
We don't know.
Okay, 1.
All right, Brian from ZFM. Just a quick one on what you mentioned, that going to this election or sanitizing it. Did you also not sanitize the election by participating in the parliamentary and the local government elections?
Thank you. 2.
Okay, Yvonne, once again, I was following up on what you said. You did not answer on the constitutionality. Yes, we could have come back to square one, but what's the difference between this particular election and the one that we had in 2013? The MDC was part of the GNU. There was a creation of a new constitution, and that constitution provides that there should be election every 5 years in Zimbabwe. So was it going to be possible not to have an election 5 years after the 2018 election? And if it did not happen, what would have been the constitutional consequences of that action?
Thank you. 3.
Okay, Lovejoy once again. Yesterday, President Emerson Mnangagwa, or President-elect Emerson Mnangagwa, said the Pollard arrangement that was there for the past, I think, 3, 4, 5 years would remain or would come back. And you were also part of that. Would you?
No, I was not.
Okay. Would you want to join Pollard if
Yeah,
if?
but this lie continues.
Okay, it's fine.
But wait. Excuse my impatience.
Okay.
Because that's deliberate misinformation. And the press sometimes engages in deliberate misinformation. We took the delimitation report to court, and we wanted the delimitation report nullified. And what did the Zimbabwean press do? They spread a lie that we were asking for the deferment of the election. And this was a lie of mass proportion, spread by people who know better. And it was spread by people who had read my application, or maybe who had not cared to read about it. And the press was very presumptuous in that regard. Now, had you finished your question?
No, I wasn't done.
Yes. I expected a sorry.
It's okay. It will come. But can I finish my question now?
Please go ahead.
Yes,
Okay, fine.
go ahead.
So I was saying President Emerson Mnangagwa said Pollard would come back when he forms his new government. Are you willing to be part of Pollard? 1. 2, there are some sections within the community, even in political commentary, that are saying the MDC, the part that you lead, is dying down now that the elections are done and dusted, and you are not part and part. You're not part and parcel of the elections. So they're saying that your party is dying down. How do you respond to that?
Number 4.
Okay, my name is Kit. In your presentation, you highlighted that there was no difference between going and not going for this election. So can we say this going into this election was a mere waste of resources?
Yeah, thank you. Before the president comes in, I just want also to comment on Poland.
Okay. Can I make a clarification on that, and then maybe I can see if I can apologize or not.
No, don't worry.
Okay,
Don't worry, it's
fine.
okay. You've made your point. You see, we made several conditions for us to participate in Poland. And one of the key conditions was that it must include other stakeholders, trade unions, churches, and other key stakeholders, so that it's not just a pact of political losers. That condition was turned down. The other condition that we put was that we wanted to create a forum within Poland of parties that are in parliament, parties represented in parliament, to form a committee so that whatever is discussed in Poland would then be processed by that committee for implementation through parliament or legislation. That proposal was refused. And we said we are not going to participate in Poland. And NDC never attended any Poland meeting. So I also want to echo what the president is saying. Zimbabweans are educated by the distort, or they just choose to ignore the fact for selfish reasons. Anyway, thanks. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much. Maybe let me just take the issue of the Poland from where the Secretary General left, so that we fully answer your question, Sam. The President spoke at a press conference, and he made his wishes or intentions known. Whether he's going to carry through those intentions, we don't know. And as a party, we cannot react to a press statement. We have not received any formal invitation from the president or whoever in that regard. And maybe the issue is because there could be issues relating on whether the results as announced by ZEC on the 25th are final or not, or whether some of the political parties, especially presidential candidates, would like to petition the Constitutional Court. We don't know that. Of course, we have our suspicions that we may probably see a petition, an electoral petition, and after that, it's only after that petition that we will have a president, not a president-elect. So the statements by a president-elect are not as serious as the statements by a president, especially where the electoral process is not yet through. To that end, maybe it's still too early. Maybe they are going to contact us or not. We don't know. We will cross the bridge when we come to it. And of course, we are very clear that whatever dialogue forum is available is probably a good starting point. And we are on record of saying, as we were discussing on whether to join Poland or not, we were clear that the Poland as constituted was necessary but not sufficient. And we wanted it to be both necessary and sufficient. It is good for political actors to talk, but political actors cannot pretend to be the only stakeholders in a country. We have other actors who are non-political, but with equal claim to the benefits of this country. And it is our wish that those people be included. And we have serious suggestions on how that can be made possible, even where the forum is called Poland or given another name we don't know. But we remain committed to dialogue. Brian, very good question. Did we not sanitize the election by going to the parliamentary and the local government? Basically, by not participating in the grand finale, in the presidential election itself, you are making a statement. And I am a political, a party candidate who had paid that a lot of money. I'm not so sure whether it's going to be refunded or not, but it will be very nice for us Brides if it's refunded. We'll be able to have that nice cup of coffee. But we had to make a statement. There had been disenfranchisement of 87 people. But you know, the law at that point in time is a bit tricky. Once nomination has happened, it is not a political party that can ask a candidate to withdraw. It is the decision of the individual candidate. And many things came into play there. The individual sacrifices, the call by the local people, etc., etc. But by and large, the MDC did not sanitize this election. And we were very, very clear, even when ZEC insisted on retaining the name, despite the fact that the letter to ZEC was written on the 2nd of August, a day after our court case was thrown out. We then wrote to ZEC to say we are withdrawing from the presidential election. ZEC, for reasons known to itself, wanted to maintain that status quo. Maybe it had printed ballot papers already, and there was going to be an embarrassment if after accepting my withdrawal, my name was found to be on the ballot paper. That was going to be an embarrassment. Yvonne, I had not heard your question as referring to constitutionality. I had simply heard of what would have happened if we had not gone into this election. But let me go to the constitutional. A constitutional crisis is not confined to pre-election or post-election period. It can exist at any time. And yet we, as the opposition, said because the conditions are not right, and that these elections will not deliver change, because this is what we all are talking about as the opposition, that the election must deliver change. It must be more than a fun game of numbers and entertainment at rallies and so on. It must culminate in the transfer of power that will result in change that will benefit Zimbabweans. That is the reason for the election. And if the conditions are placed in your way that delivery of that change is impossible, it may be prudent not to take part, so that you will send a clear signal to the government, to the international community. We dramatize the Zimbabwean problem. And I think that we would have converted this issue into a political issue, a political conundrum, and it will be resolved politically. And now you will see that in some of the reports from the observers, they are urging people to go to court. Now that has narrowed the choices that are there, the room to maneuver. A smart politician must always leave room to maneuver for himself, either to go left, right, or to go up or down, depending on the exigencies of the time. Participation in elections confines you to one one route, and that route is the legal route. You have to go to the constitutional court to impugn the presidential election, and so on. But of course, I am not blaming people who participated. This was a conscious choice. We made our choice. Whether we were right or not is for the society now to decide. Whether not participating in elections does spell death for the MDC. Thank you, my brother. The MDC was not formed in order to be in parliament. The MDC was formed in order to take over governmental power through peaceful, democratic and constitutional means and change the lives of the Zimbabweans for the better. In other words, it is not the end game of the MDC to get a few members to go to parliament, enjoy themselves there. And that's not the aim of the MDC. I congratulate the MPs who won and so on, but the aim of the MDC is to be able to put MPs, to be able to put a president and form a government. That is the aim of the MDC. And that government must not just be a government, it must be a government that will change the lives of our people for the better. Therefore, whether we are outside parliament or not, the MDC will not die. This is not the first time that the MDC boycotted an election. This is actually the second time that the MDC has boycotted a presidential election. In 2008, the MDC boycotted the presidential runoff as a result of the bloodletting that had happened, as a result of the unfair playing field. And the MDC also has boycotted this year as a result of the mass disenfranchisement of 87 of its people. The blockage of funds meant to it, almost the tune of 1 million euro, almost 1 million euro of funds that were supposed to be used to safeguard the vote were blocked. And therefore, we were unable to continue. We are going to continue with other forms of struggle. And you are here, isn't it? You are here at the MDC headquarters, well knowing that the MDC is not in government. Does that signify death at all? The MDC is not going to die. It is going to the drawing board. It is resuscitating itself. It has demonstrated in very credible ways that it is a party of vision, and it is a party of strategy, and a party that it discerns. We discerned what was going to happen, we predicted what was going to happen, and it came to pass. The lady question was this therefore not just a waste of resources? I'm afraid to say it was a waste of resources. More so if, of course, somebody takes this to court and they succeed. It means that we have another election on top of another election. And people listened to the MDC and supported delimitation. We will have done the delimitation correctly. You will not have seen the confusion around the ballot papers, around the boundaries, around the polling stations and the boundaries that were in a constant state of flux. You would not have seen that. Yet people listened to the MDC. And now we are where we are because the courts were interfered with. ZANU-PF and ZEC were adamant about delimitation. Some members of the opposition sponsored people to go and fight for the delimitation. And we are at this stage. But that is water under the bridge. And we are saying, come brothers, come sisters, We are brothers, we are sisters, we make mistakes. This is time to correct ourselves. This delimitation is wrong. The problems of this country can be solved by dialogue. And let's engage in dialogue. And we are not saying we told you so. We are simply saying we were right. And you may have disagreed with us politically, but we were right. Let's go for dialogue. I was very happy when I listened to the press conference by my brother Chamisa yesterday, where he was calling for dialogue. I agree with him that there is a need for serious dialogue in this country. And I will go on to say that dialogue must be inclusive, not exclusive. That dialogue must be unconditional, and that dialogue must be genuine, and it will resolve the issues of the people of Zimbabwe. That dialogue, most importantly, must not be aimed at sharing power. That dialogue must be aimed at redressing the problems of the people of Zimbabwe. This is about them. This is about the people of Zimbabwe.
Right, I think we're done. Thank you so much.